Welcome to the Busy Beaver Club, your go-to podcast for a better life. We cover your health through physical fitness, mindset fitness, and financial fitness, helping you stay sharp and succeed. So let's get productive, build, grow, and thrive. Today's star is Sam Papai, and he is an amazing guy. You're gonna love this one. He's got so much wisdom, and he's such a nice person. So Sam, before we get started, we're started, but I want to ask you a small question. What's something, maybe even silly, that instantly makes your day better?
Ooh, I love the sunshine. When I wake up in the morning and there's sunshine through my window, it makes me smile right away. Any communication by my mother, always a major plus. And go to the gym in the morning, that makes me very happy.
Okay, so now you're going to make me ask the question. Which one's the most important?
My mother, without a
Good
doubt.
answer.
Absolutely.
Friends and family, nothing more important. Right on. I mean, so you can make all the money in your world, but so right on. All right. So you started in Quebec growing up.
Yes.
What did young Sam do growing up in Quebec that instantly is how does I'm here in America. What is it about Quebec? How's that changed you?
Quebec is what we would call a socialist nation, certainly. So we are a distinct nation in Canada. So we're still in Canada, but we're still basically regarded legally and federally as a distinct nation. So we have our own rulings, we have our own language, obviously, Québécois, French. So it's a beautiful place. I would say how I would describe Quebec is very European, especially to Americans. When people go to once a year, basically, I bring all my team in Montreal, and they always say the same thing. Oh my God, looks so much like France, looks so much like Europe because it's very narrow streets. Architecture is phenomenal. The art scene is one of the best in the world, without a doubt. I would say it used to be a bit more family and religion oriented. I would say now we're quite based on the sort of the equality movement and they sort of, I suppose, everybody has a chance in Quebec. I really believe that. I really believe that you can start with nothing or not much and really perhaps have a better life for yourself. I would say culturally, our culture is very much based on being exceptionally welcoming. We're very welcoming people. We're very known for that also. We love to drink. We're also that known for that quite a bit. But for me personally, I had a very interesting, basically, upbringing because I had a very conservative dad, and I have a very loving mother. So that yin and yang perhaps made me a very balanced person, I suppose. I grew up as a soccer player. Sports is also very important. Obviously, hockey is the main sport, but I decided to go the other routes, and I played hockey. It was just not for me. And so, yes, I would say it made me realize that one basically diversity is phenomenal, not only in people but also in their life choices. But it also made me realize that within that diversity, when we have a common goal and we have a common vision, which sometimes we struggle with, but we're chipping at it. It's beautiful things emerge out of it, I suppose.
So we brought up your family, your parents twice now. So let me just ask you this. What's one value that your parents or maybe an early mentor passed down to you that still guides you today?
Plenty to choose from. I would say if I only choose one
You
is
can do two or three.
generosity.
This is your show. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just asking questions.
I
So
appreciate it. I,
that first one, I just wanted to narrow it down to mom. If you had not said mom, I would have had to go off on you, and we'd have
it's
ended
over.
this.
I got it. I got it. I'd say generosity. I think that really one thing that marks my life is always trying to bring value first to everyone that we meet, whatever it is a server or a CEO, doesn't matter. To really treat everybody with respect and to make that first step basically value wise is how I was raised without a doubt. I would say another thing also is tolerance. Is I had and that served me very well now because I deal with so many different cultures and different ways of doing things. I think that when you're respectful, pretty much everything can be said. It's just how you say it. So I learned that basically through my mother and my dad actually. More of a direct route with my dad and more of a compassionate run perhaps with my mother, which again was great. And but I would say those three values are definitely those that I believe defines me.
Interesting. You're in Canada. You say it's socialist, but you have a more of a capitalist idea, which is
Yes.
fine. Uh, but you're bringing up family, and you're bringing up something that was exactly the same for me.
Mm,
My parents raised me to judge someone on how they treated you. Didn't matter about skin color, religion, that none of that mattered. How do they treat you? Then that's, if they're nice to you, you should be nice to them. And that's been something that's stuck with me forever. Even in my martial arts career, back in the 70s and 80s, martial arts was segregated just like blacks and whites. Uh, Taekwondo was better than Kung Fu. Kung Fu was better than Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu was better than whatever. Everybody, and even in Kung Fu systems and a karate system, that karate system was better than this. It was all just, it was just so like this. And
Right.
the weird thing was, is I was a Kung Fu practitioner at the end of the day. And when I really started getting into the tournaments and stuff, and all my competitors that became friends were karate people, and they liked me, and my style was so different than theirs. They would start asking me, "How do you fight like that? How do you do this? How do you do that?" I said, "Well, I'll do a seminar for you and come to your school." And I. Here's the funny thing: I learned more about martial arts from them asking me to teach them, because they say, "Oh, we do it this way," and I'm like, "Ooh, that's interesting." And I had a Shotokan guy. The snake style is my specialty, and I do actually, my snake style is more of a wrestling style because of my background. And he showed me, I was making a snake style fist this way, and he goes, "Put your thumb right here on the middle of your thumb." That make, and I was like, "Whoa, that's so much stronger." And he's like, so you just little things, right, that make a big difference. And so
Sure.
by treating everybody with respect and asking, seriously well-intentioned questions, I made so many friends, and in business also, but back then in the martial arts world, I was a rarity. And I think I actually brought a lot, because you started to see the culture of, it was in Oklahoma, the culture of the Oklahoma Karate Association really changed. They actually put me on the board of directors. I was on the first board of directors. There's the only Kung Fu guy there, but it's funny. But so yeah, you're all over it, man, with your values. Let's switch it up just a little bit. What about your close friends? Give me some words, 3 words, whatever, words that you think that they would say about you.
I'm not a friend type of person. I'll say that up front. Never had many friends. I would say in my whole life, I probably consider two people to be friends. That's it. I never made that a priority in my life. I'll be very honest with you. I would say for those that know me, I hope they would say that I'm an honest man. I hope that they would say perhaps that I am somebody with integrity, that was respectful to all. Again, coming back to that point. But I will tell you front and center, to me, what others think, friends or people that were not my friends, I suppose, was always secondary, to mainly God, I suppose. The people that I really hold dear and my loved ones. But most importantly, before being very successful, I was a much more self-centered person. I would say my only objective was how can I put all my efforts into becoming self-sufficient so I can become selfless as rapidly as possible. That was always my only quest actually in life. So I would say from 12 to 16, I was not a social person whatsoever. But I would, if those two people, I hope that would be the few words that they would share.
That's amazing. That's awesome. I'm so glad. And by the way, I appreciate you being so authentic with us. Like, you're not giving me a canned answer. My audience needs to hear this, or this is the politically right thing or religiously right thing to say. I really appreciate and that's one of the reasons why I think I just got this feeling when we first met. You just seemed like a super nice. This is not an insult, kid. Because I'm
Sure.
I got kids older than you, right? But you're
Yes.
smart. You've done more. You've done more than most kids your age, right? I mean,
Yes.
you are very successful. And that just brings me to this question. Take us back to the defining moment that changed your direction in your life and or career.
It's actually I'll share one of my favorites sort of quote of all time. It's in your worst moment that basically creates the biggest breakthroughs, and that was really my case. I was able to graduate early with a nutrition degree when I was about 16 years old, and afterwards, basically, I was a soccer player in that time, and it was very interesting because I was going to the Quebec scene and even Canadian scene, which I was very close to doing. I didn't make the team, but I was invited for the trials. And I suffered a terrible injury to my left leg. I was not able to walk for about, I'd say 2 months, 2 to 3 months. I was in a hospital bed, legs completely shattered, needed to relearn basically how to walk. And again, coming back to my first point, I was a very self-centered person. I really thought I was Superman, to be very honest. I really thought I was invincible. And that injury sort of knocked me down, obviously. And I said, well, perhaps I'm not I'm not that strong. So it's very interesting because I had the chance and the pleasure to share my hospital bed with my mother that was able to stay with me. We had the luxury perhaps of her being able to take off work for quite a while, which is obviously I'm very grateful for that. And we shared all sorts of things. We read the Bible together, but most importantly, it really shifted my mindset to however perhaps I think I'm great or whatever I will be doing for me to be great. I will only be great if I can make others great through it, right? The go-giver mindset, which is now a huge part of my life, always been a huge part of my life. So I suppose it really changed me from me to we, as I like to call it. And oh yeah, great book. And there, yeah, there we
I got
go.
them all, but
So
this, yeah.
they are phenomenal books. And really, that's a pivotal moment was this moment where it clicks. And one, I found some of my life directory, which was not sports, which I thought it would have been when I was a kid. And the second thing was this whole mindset of now thinking about I suppose my not only my wordiness, but I suppose my impact through the sheer perhaps mark that I leave on people and perhaps in bettering their life altogether. I think that was quintessential. I would have never been part of my first company, certainly, which we'll probably talk about, but I would never been able to do so much so quickly without understanding that for a relationship to be formed, but also to be maintained, there's a need for a mutual exchange of value that is from both parties seen as equal or more than basically they're receiving more than what they're giving, and that moment, that me in that hospital bed losing this concept that I was Superman and over everything was certainly the most important things in my life this far.
Yeah, I think that was actually God's blessing to you to get hurt
Yes,
because the problem with most kids, they think they're indestructible. They'll live forever, right? And
yes,
once you realize that's not true, then you have to be a little bit more serious. And here's the thing. And in my martial arts schools, and I'll just talk about my kids. I always told them it's not how many times you get knocked down that's important. It's how many times you get up. And I always ask them how many times you need to get up, and the answer was just one more, right? And so you got down, and so but also what this did is was defined you. You had a choice to turn left or right. You could have taken this and go like, oh, God hates me and I'm just never going to be worth anything, or because apparently, I imagine most likely because of your parents and your upbringing
yes.
and your mindset before that, even it might have not been developed where it needed to be, but it was developed enough to go ahead, listen to mama and daddy and whoever else was talking with you at that point in time, and then become who you are today. So without that injury, you would have never been this successful, or at least this successful on the level that you are right now. I like to bring up Michael Jordan when I talk about this. He got kicked from the varsity team, went home, cried to mommy, and said, "Mom, the judge doesn't, the coach doesn't like me because I'm black because he says I don't work out enough, but blah 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 blah. It's all he's racist, whatever it was, you know." And his mom looked at him and goes, "No, he's right. You're lazy. You'll never amount to be anything, especially in a basketball team. You don't start working." That's when he started doing 2 hours before and 2 hours before he woke up and 2 hours before he went to bed. And that what do we know him for? It was the work ethic. He's the one that set. Actually, Larry Bird did, but he after Larry Bird, he really went out there, and it was oh my gosh, and it was Michael Jordan was that, and so you learned all of that, and you turned right instead of left. You took the red pill,
Yes.
and so that's super cool. So you kind of brought on to it. So, but let's see if we can personalize this a little bit. What's one personal failure or setback, something else that ended up being a blessing in disguise? Not the injury, but more. Let's talk about more of the. Well, you go ahead wherever you want to go with this.
It's interesting you mentioned this. One thing that always comes back to mind was as I was starting to be successful in my first company, my mother had a hard time in her marriage, and their marriage was adding to divorce actually. And I wasn't considering myself a kid at that point. I was 17 years old. Yes, I was, I suppose, more financially successful than most, but certainly not a man yet. And the not only from a I suppose from a tangible perspective, but from a figurative figure also. And I didn't conduct myself like a man yet, I suppose I will say it this way. And it was interesting because my mother struggling actually causes me to exit and liquidate my shares of my first company, which a lot of people know me for. And a lot of people were saying actually, well, Sam, you liquidated your share actually very low compared to how much the business was value. And I said, yes, you're right. Actually, I could have taken much more. But the reason why I said I did that is because at that precise moment, the person that I love the most, which is still the case by far, my mother, needed help and needed help, like sudden help, and was perhaps bound to lose a lot. Let me just put it this way without being too personal. And therefore, I was able to take the manly decisions. Again, I'm a very conservative man, very a traditional man. So for those who ain't, it's fantastic. I wish you well. But personally, I see the world that way. So I that really taught me two things. One, what it is to not only say you care about somebody, but having your action showcasing that you care for somebody. And two, perhaps that really made me understand that to those in which are given much, or which should be expected to give much. That is actually a beautiful quote from one of our founders here in Quebec. And it's a beautiful family, actually, which I love dearly. And it's very interesting because that decision now, this failure, I suppose, which is one, underselling my shares, but two, seeing my mother in a rough time, made me actually kill two birds with one stone and say, well, you know what? Let me liquidate it. We'll be very happy about it. I'll get my cash as soon as possible. I'll help my mother. We'll retain the house and everything else that was pretty much set on fire without it. And yes, I would say I would call it a failure, but I would certainly say that setback or that perceived setback made me realize and I suppose double down on I need to live for something greater than myself. And two, quality and in my opinion, worthy men are those in which make the most for those that are in vulnerable positions.
I want to go a little bit deeper on this. That was first of all a pretty big risk for you to do that with your company.
Yes.
The risk of losing your mother or her going spiraling down was even bigger. So that's a good calculated risk. What did that ultimately teach you or affect you?
Well, I'll cite the Bible. In Timothy it says the love of money is a vice, basically, is immoral. Not making money, the love of it. And at that time, that was my biggest lesson. Because look, I'm gonna be very honest. When I talk with those basically investors that's gonna be taking back my shares, I look at the numbers we were making on an annual basis. I look at the EBITDA, and I said, all right, I could probably sell my shares if I retain this a bit more, probably about four times what I'm asking right now. So I had this what if moment. I had this what if moment. What if I don't do it? And look, my mother will still love me, and I will still love my mother, and I just can wait a little bit and make I suppose probably about four times my money. And so again, I would be lying if I told you that I didn't think about choosing money over the right decision, which was to not choose it in that case. For sure, choose love, choose family, choose faith. So that was the first thing was from a hierarchy perspective, when you're successful at a young age, we see that with athletes, we see that with actors, we see that with everybody that is able to be successful, I suppose, from 18 to 25, let's say. There's this little moment that you're bound to think that because you make more money, one, you're more worthy, which you're not. Let me tell you this right now. Let me tell you this right now. And two, because you make money basically and people give you perhaps flowers because of it, you think money is more important than anything else in your life, which again, it is not. It will never be. And therefore, that moment, that was what it taught me the most. It taught me that regardless of, like you said, how much money you make, if there's no sunshines, there's no morning text, there's no taking care of my physical health, none of it truly matter. So it really rearrange or perhaps maybe nuance some of my position concerning what is truly important in life and how can I perhaps live a fulfilling life with the right priorities.
Words of wisdom. Let's change it up a little bit. We've been talking about the past, which is good, but let's bring it into the present. What recent change have you made, big or small, it doesn't really matter, that had as surprisingly big impact? So you didn't really think it was going to be that, but holy cow, that was
Love. Found a life partner. That is amazing. For those in which are not in love yet, or maybe even are bound to think that love is not great because your last relationship was not what you were expecting. I just want to tell you that first of all, God loves you. That's more important than whatever I'm gonna say. But second of all, trust love. Trust love. Because for me, I hear this all the time. So many much times I'm sitting down with quite powerful and successful people, men and women. And they always tell me the same thing, Sam, you should really wait, because you're a successful kid. Be careful. Maybe that woman perhaps is not there for the right reason. Blah 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 blah. And look, they want to harm me. I don't think they're there. Those comments are not perhaps to cause me any issues. Quite the opposite. And I thank them for them. I thank them for those comments. That being said, I believe they're wrong. And the reason why I believe they're wrong is because in my opinion, from studying history heavily and from seeing my mentors, when you think about what is the quest of life, and let me take religion out of it for a second here, as we don't all share the same fates. I suppose that my goal of life is to leave the earth a better place than how I found it. To make it very simple, to make it a single sentence. And what I think makes the world a better place, if I can summarize it in a single word, it would be love. How much love you have for what I consider to be the creator, or what you consider to be the creator, how much love you have for yourself, how much love you have for your neighbors, how much love you have for the world. And when I found this life partner, I thought it would be, well, that's great, right? I won't be home alone, and that's good. That's only gonna be impacting that part of my life. But no, I smile way more. I'm a happier person. I'm a much more emotionally stable person. I make better decisions, business and outside of it also, because, and I'm gonna come back to a very important point. When you're a young man like myself, testosterone is very high, success is very high. There's a lot of opportunities with women. Most importantly, I'm heterosexual, and for one, it's very time consuming. And two, I wouldn't say it's the most moral endeavor. And therefore, to have a partner in which you love and loves you dearly gives you confidence. It gives you this sense in which perhaps you have a lot, you're building a life worth sharing, which that was the biggest thing for me. It was, I always come back to, maybe you know him or not. Tyler the Creator is a hip hop artist, which I don't particularly like that style of music at all. But in his song, one of his songs, he says, "What's the point of coming home when there's nobody there?" And I thought of that for a very long time. All right, I have property. I have two properties actually, and there were nobody in there outside of the other ones that I rent to tenants. So there was nobody that I love dearly, that I can serve, that I perhaps can cherish a relationship with. So I would say finding a life partner that I really trust and that we have clear objective of staying together and building a family together and so on. That is quite recent for me. That is less than 3 months old. Is has been amazing. Has been incredible. Much more incredible than I would have thought.
Yeah, you said love. I'll say it a different way. It's the same thing, but I'll quote somebody. Steve Jobs. What are you
Oh,
going to do to dent the universe? And it always comes by love. It's always through love, right? What are you going to do for your fellow man or woman? What are you going to do, right? That's going to dent the universe. Is going to make humans better and more productive, hopefully, and happier. That's really it's really at. Charlie Kirk changed my
mm,
life because for a variety of reasons. I actually started trying to studying how he dealt with people that were so against what he was for, right? Which is fine. I mean, no one believes exactly the same thing as somebody else, right? It's just
yes.
the color of the sun could be different. It doesn't matter, right? But he said, I always talk to them and approach them with love. I love them. And it was just it really hit me. And then I went to back to what my saying about Steve Jobs, and I'm like, that's really what Steve Jobs was saying, right? And so that was amazing. You're hitting all the. Are you sure you didn't practice? Did you get my questions before you look in the future?
No, no, I don't need to
Took
practice.
a transcript of all the questions I was going to ask you. All right. So, how do you personally stay grounded and focused, especially in this fast-moving digital age? I mean, everything's like, yeah, 2 seconds you didn't start going after the light changed, and somebody's honking at you, like, not even in 2 seconds. Really, that's too long. 1 second. It's like,
Oh yeah, yeah. 1 second, even less than that these days.
yeah.
It's getting pretty crazy. For me, religion, God keeps me grounded. The love that I have not only for myself but my fellow men definitely keeps me grounded. The It's interesting you mentioned Steve Jobs, because Steve Jobs was not the best person actually, but he's still somebody that inspired me quite a lot. And he had a letter at the end of his life, which was nothing short of extraordinary. I don't know exactly what you would put into a search engine to come up with it, but just say something about Steve Jobs basically late letter basically when he was sick and something like that, and it should show up. If not, you can just contact me. I'll send it to you. And he was talking about this incredible sort of haha moment, which I had and you had actually sooner than Steve Jobs, which is, all things in there, I think it's a great thing. But when he was actually sick, he wrote this letter about the fact that I didn't compose most of the music that I enjoy. I didn't compose any of the instruments that are now being gathered to heal me. I didn't perhaps put together what was necessary for our fellow men to travel. So he's signing basically all these things that he did not do, and he end the letter with And because of all of this, I have great love and admiration for my fellow man. And that is how I feel. I feel that through all the terrible things, through all the chaos, through the fire, as I like to say, first and foremost, why stop there? Why stop in the middle of the fire? It doesn't make much sense to me. So keep going. But two, and maybe even most importantly, the human species is incredible. It's a very loving species, all things considered. It's a very considerate and tolerant species, all things considered. And really, we don't take enough time to sit down and realize how incredible we made life for all of us. It is we always come back to the negative, and that's why I don't listen to news channel and so on. I did not since I'm about 14. It's because it's very rare that they make that perhaps they show us a glimpse of hope and happiness. That's my opinion again. What I really think though that we should always think about is not only from a DNA perspective, but also from an aspiration perspective, we are so much more alike than we are different, and that's really what keeps me grounded. Even if we disagree, even if you think I'm an asshole because we don't have the same opinion, that's fine. That's your opinion. We're in a free country, or at
Yeah.
least in the freest country. The When all things considered, I will actually welcome it. That will probably nuance my point. It's actually a great thing that you disagree. But that being said, let's keep upon being faithful with our fellow men. Let's keep upon understanding that life is much greater than you not only expect, but you love people as perhaps the best version of who you know they can become. That's something that I learned with age. I'm still quite young, but I still learn it with age. Is sometimes people are going through rough times and they will say something that was out of place and they shouldn't have said, or they did something that they shouldn't did. And there's a lot of people that hold those grudges. I try to relinquish them. I try to say, well, look, that person made such action because he was sad, because he was tormented by whatever it is. Let's try to help him. Let's pray for him at the minimum, but let's try to help him with all the heart that we have. That's really what keeps me grounded. Is I am optimistic and I have so much love for our species, to be honest.
Yeah, you hit a bunch of really good points there. Think about this: if you were never challenged, would you grow?
Yeah.
Right? So and so if you want to have disagreement. I mean, your friends. You don't agree, like it be a sports team, right? No, my team's going to win. No, my team's, and then you learn the stats, right? Or you don't learn the stats. You're just talking emotional. But it grows, but your bond grows too, right? You can disagree, and your bond grows. One of my best friends played the trumpet for OU, got a scholarship on that. The other one went to OSU, and
Oh
they
boy.
knew the stats, right? I never went to a game. I mean, in my opinion, there's only really one football. I think you know who I mean when I say that. Not a
Oh, all
pigskin.
right.
It's not a pigskin. It's black and white. But
Oh yeah.
I never went to a football game at OU just because it just wasn't my thing. But I always enjoyed the time I spent with them when they were going back and forth about their stats and this and that. Oh yeah, and I was like, this is super cool, right? I mean, I had no clue, right? I still to this day, I mean, Roger Staubach for the Dallas Cowboys is I don't even know who the Dallas Cowboys. I'm probably going to get banned from Texas now, but I don't know who the quarterback is for the Dallas Cowboys right
It's
now.
Dak Prescott.
Oh, Prescott, he's still there. Wow, he's lasted quite a while, hasn't he?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
it's Dak
and you know
Prescott.
football as well as football. That's amazing. See, you.
I do. I to be very honest, I will give 100% of the credit to my memory, because I don't watch anything. But if you told me one thing at one point in 2013, I probably remember it, and that's just a gift that I have.
That's so cool. Whole life agents who do infinite banking get 200 unbranded posts that you can customize and use as your own. You just got to copy and paste. Also, you'll get 7 days access to our school community for free. And posting is a waste of time unless video. And of course, the 5 stages of marketing cheat sheet. Want them branded? We'll point you to our Fiverr guy, or you can do it yourself if you prefer. Click the link or use the QR code. Get them now. So let's change it up a little. I have this term that I trademarked, micro victory. So because I like small victories to that it can lead to other things, but everybody always looks at the end result. Like you look at it successfully, you're like, I never could be like Sam because he's no, you don't remember Sam was a little like you built this. You didn't just like from zero to hero, right?
Oh no.
Yeah. So what's one micro victory from the past that you're proud of that most people might have missed?
One of my favorite micro victory is one thing we do with our C-suite executives is we give them equity with milestone to achieve them. And that is something that is not talked about in the industry, that is a bit even taboo in the industry, but I don't mind at all. I'll still go right in there. The the micro win was through those share that was delivered. I always come back to what Jeff Bezos said. He said, well, look, I'm worth all these billions, but you need to understand that this enterprise is worth 1.2 trillions, and therefore all the wealth that I don't have are now distributed to all these other people, workers, other shareholders, and so on. So really, and again, this is another, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but the problems are not the rich. I know that we try to sell that idea. It's not at all. It's actually quite the opposite. Some of the most generous people, most of the most generous people, actually, because they have the resources for them. Not saying they're better people, but they're more generous because they have more things to give. Is exceptionally ultra successful people. So a micro win of mine is, and something that people don't know about, and maybe will learn from me, went from Concentric and my other enterprise on this podcast actually, is I always give shares to the people in which makes us successful. And again, starting with the executive class, but even down perhaps what we call the hierarchy, which I don't really like, but we still a necessity perhaps from an organization perspective. That is something that I'm very proud of, that we are very proud of, to say, well, look, in all things that we build them together. All right, so we'll pay you fairly for it, but we'll also give you what we call skin in the game to ensure that not only is your level of effort is on par with what we're perhaps expecting, but also is on par with something that you know will grow with you. Right? You were talking about there's no growth without pressure. Exactly, and there's no growth without skin in the game, perhaps from an equity perspective. So that is a micro win that I always love. It's sometimes a few basically pretend percentage points, sometimes it's way less than that, but it still means that in all things considered, as they are growing with us, as the enterprise, as an entity, basically is growing alongside entities, which are human beings and resources within it, everybody wins basically mid to long term. And that is something that I always been not very keen to share, but very keen to share my equity, not very keen to share the story, but I suppose very keen to share it today because it is something that all things considered, I am very happy about. This concept of win-win is one that I really believe in, and I will continue to do so, hopefully until I die.
If you want to, you will. That's
That's right. That's right.
so yeah. So definitions of success when you're a 2 year old is way different than where you are right now and where you were as a teenager. So how has it evolved? Let's just we won't break it that far back. Let's just like the last 5 years. What's your how has it evolved? Your definition of success evolved, and what does it look like today from the last 5 years?
I'd say my vision of success is much more holistic than it was. Like I said, when you're younger, 5 years from basically in the past for me, I was 16, just for the audience to understand. So at 16, got this first injury and so on. So that was a pivotal moment in my life. I had my first company at 17, sold my share, liquidated my share when I was 18. So everything happened very quickly in my life. I was always that type of person, I suppose. Success for me now is really encompassing, again, is much more holistic in the sense that is only encompassing me as a person, it's encompassing my loved ones, encompassing the world. So I suppose much broader in that sense. The other thing with success also is there's materialistic success, but I would say the spiritual successes, moral successes, as I like to call them, are much more taken into consideration in my life now compared to 5 years ago. Now, if you tell me basically, Sam, I gave you $100 million, but you'll lose your peace, I would have taken that deal at 16, without a doubt. I would no longer take that deal at 21. Like Mike Tyson said, Mike Tyson of all people, which is much wiser than people give him credit for, by the way, much, much wiser. And he said in this interview, a phenomenal interview, he said, and somebody asked him, well, how do you feel after that fight when you won, 30 million for one fight, as Jay-Z would say? So that's Mike. And he said, that don't mean nothing if you lose your peace. And that, my friend, is how I would re-qualify, redefine success is nothing is worth your peace. Nothing is worth your peace. That money, not a relationship you hold dear, nothing is worth your peace. And I would say that's how it involve success wise.
I would agree with that and add one word: integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, nothing's worth your integrity. My three core
Sure.
values. The first one is integrity. If you offer me something and it doesn't pass my integrity, it's an easy decision for me. I don't have to go to the other two. I don't have to think
So
about it. I can say, Sam, that's great, but right now I'm busy with the projects consuming all my time. But you're a smart kid. I'm sure you'll figure it out. So, but if things change, I'll let you know. That's, by the way, how I say no to everyone. So if I ever say that to you, that's it. But here's the truth: I'm always working on a project, so it's not a lot, right?
yeah,
And
it's just covering the no.
yeah, and so when I had this mastermind that I'm in, and one of the very successful real estate people said that she didn't have the time to do a certain thing, and I said, "Yeah, you do." She says, "No, I don't." I said, "No, you priority needs to change,
That's
but you
right.
have the time. It's just your priority is someone." She, "Oh, well, yeah, I guess you're right." So we all have the time to do whatever we want, but it's not worth my time to learn how to be a plumber or an electrician or whatever, right? So yeah, but let's switch gears even more now. Let's talk about impact and your area of expertise. What does meaningful marketing really mean to you at your company and the core Centrica?
Or Centrica, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, yeah. So what is that? I've known you for so long, and I just tell on myself, I never have used your last name, and you had to teach me your last name. I should have
Yes.
done that. I should have made sure about that, but I got it right on the first try. So I'm just going to
It,
say
yeah,
that.
you got it. You got it. Centrica. My first company was a company involving a data-driven algorithmic that we basically built. Today would be an AI powered because everybody used that terms. But at that time, it was just basically a chain of automation that was serving SMEs. Our goal was to manage them in real time with the viable marketing agencies for their budgets, for their needs, for where they are in the world, so on and so forth. So we built this conglomerate, basically, this network as better known in the common world. And really, that initiative was fantastic. That made me my first dollars. That was great. But I was seeing perhaps even before the adaptation of AI, which is still very low, by the way, for those that think it's mass adapted, it definitely isn't. The When it's very interesting though is that I saw that because the whole world was going the data route, specifically since the advent of social media and also LLMs, I was sort of foreseeing this sort of idea where if we all use the same piece of data and we don't have a way to humanize and make it novel and unique, then we'll all sound the same. And for those in which are following a little bit on LinkedIn and others, that is exactly the case that is happening right now. Everybody sounds the same because we're using the same tool with the same input. So meaningful marketing came out of this understanding that, all right, data is important and we'll still need data to make conscious decisions, but we need a way to humanize it, make it novel, make it unique for the companies that we serve. So through a partnership with the Learning Code Institute, which, by the way, JW Wilson, the founder and the executive chairman and directors, just sadly passed away. So me, God rest his soul, and he was a mentor, friend, one of the dearest person in my life, but he's in a better place. Don't worry for him. He's right next to our and his version of our creator. JW Wilson saw me speak at an event in Scottsdale, Arizona. I was freshly 18 years old, right after my first exit. I was invited to this charity event, spoke in front of 5,000 people. I delivered my speech about marketing and how we grow the business. And he said, Sam, we need to sit down. We sat down. He said, Sam, I'm working for 40 years now on a science, basically a methodology called the Code 24. I said, what's that? He said, it's basically a checklist to understand how people learn and make decisions. I said, cool. And he said, I would love to turn it into a marketing model. Would you help me in that? I said, yes. So I sat down for 4 months. I was unemployed, but richer, as I like to call it. And I sat down for 4 months and I said, all right, how do we pair data with neuroscience to do exactly what I wanted to do, which is to make it novel, unique, and applicable to all businesses? And I found a way. And we basically named the child of these two parents meaningful marketing, which is the intersection of data driven and neuroscience. That is what meaningful marketing is. And what the reason why it's so successful and so powerful is because now instead of very bland, nuanced, general piece of data, you can then make the data not only super applicable and unique to who you are, what you're trying to do, what are your objectives, but we also have a team of experts trained on on basically the meaningful marketing methodology, ready to serve you at all time in your marketing endeavors. And that is what it is and what we're so happy perhaps to help the world with it.
Everybody has to. We talked about this a number of times. Everybody has a different belief, and that's what makes us stronger. Is learning those
Yes.
different beliefs. Even if you disagree with it, it makes you stronger. What's your belief that you hold about building a brand that goes against the mainstream?
Against the mainstream, I think way too many people are focusing on building a brand upon this sort of understanding I suppose, logos and typography, and your website is new. That's all important. But I want you to remember that your brand is two things. One is what people remember when you're not in the room. That's Steve Jobs. That's Jeff Bezos, excuse me. And two, your brand is actually a promise, a trust promise to all your customers and your non right now the people that are not customer, that you will do what they paid for. That is what a brand means. I understand this very fancy new way now of advertising basically a brand through founder-led growth and so on, which is very important. And we use it. Obviously, me being on this podcast is an example of that. That being said, I want you to come back to the fundamental. What's most important to the brand is how good your service or product is. Not how good your logo is, not how new your website is, not if you remember to change the date basically at the bottom of the website page. That's all necessary. That's all good. But that's not what a brand is. Your brand is the overall conceptions from an entity perspective of not only what you do, but how you do it, why you do so, and most importantly, again, the trust promise, the promise perhaps that what you're saying is not only right, but will be made right. But second of all, this understanding in which brand, and I want you to understand this, your brand, regardless of if you want to or not, will have opinions upon it that you dislike. There's going to be some people perhaps that think about your brand in ways that you dislike, and that is just the way it is. There is a big misconception right now in the marketplace that somehow, some ways, without working on your product, without what I call selling the dream, we see a lot of these influencers these days, not selling anything in particular outside of the dream that you can achieve the dream. I want you to be careful about such things because first and foremost, the dream they're selling is typically a scam one. But most importantly, for you and for all your audience and people that will see it, I want you to remember that in business, the most important thing by far is what your company stands for. And not only what your company stands for, but what your company repeatedly do to come back in the mind of your target audience. The better your product and service is, the easier it will be to build a brand. So focus on that first. Once you have quality service or product, then perhaps let's focus on amplifying your brand through all these other things you see online about branding. But I want you to think about your company is actually what you deliver to your customer, not the words on your next podcast.
Okay, I want to be selfish right now, and I don't know how much you charge an hour, and but I'm gonna test my brand. And here's the thing that people don't realize about me: I'm a change agent. That doesn't mean I help people change. It means I change so that I can help people change.
Right.
So I'm gonna throw out what I think my brand is, and you can say yay, nay, or dude, I'm leaving. I don't want to ever talk to you again. And it's
Okay,
fine,
cool.
you know, because we're all different people and different opinions. So when somebody asks me what I do, I have a couple of things that I say. The first one is I ask this question. It's a three-part, and actually just go ahead and answer it. So Sam, if you left your business for a year and came back and had a 20% increase in ROI, would you agree with me that you're more like Warren Buffett, or not Warren Buffett? Yeah, let's just go Warren Buffett. Or what's that guy's name? The guy that I always use this on now. I'm forgetting. He's in England. He has the airline, Virgin Airline.
Oh
Uh,
yes, Russell Brunson, Richard Brunson.
yeah, you know, it's like you're if you had a 20% increase in ROI, you'd be like Richard Branson. He does, Sir Richard. He he doesn't. He owns that business. He doesn't work in that business. Would you agree with me that you own that business?
Right, absolutely.
Okay. If you came back that year later and it had a 20% decrease in ROI, would you agree with me that that business owns you?
Sure.
All I do is help people own businesses. Now, that's what I do. Why do I do it? Because I had three businesses when I was young also. And in America, we had a saying back in the 80s, we're Americans, we work harder than everybody else. And I bought into that. And, you know, for that, my kids never had to look at the right side of the menu. I taught them to order what they want, even if it was more expensive, whatever. But the rule was they had to order something they didn't eat, and if they didn't like it, they could order anything they wanted, right? So they had to try something new, right? Got that mindset in there.
Okay, got it.
And so they then that cost me a couple of every once in a while, but not a big deal. So and then that was the good news. The bad news was we took only 4 vacations in over 18 years. That's not the worst news. I can remember my oldest son's first t-ball practice, and that's it. to this day, I don't know what position he played. I don't know if he hit the ball, he threw anybody out. I don't even know if they had a winning or losing season because I
Wow.
was doing it for the family. And so my question to you is this: if you were an alcoholic, I know you're not, but if you were an alcoholic, because I don't drink also, if you were an alcoholic and you wanted to stop drinking, would you go be taught how to not drink from somebody that's never drank, some teetotaler that's never drank before? Or would you like to go and talk to a reformed alcoholic,
Probably the reform one.
reformed workaholic? Still a workaholic. I have to be very careful. But I want people to realize that it's the time they spent with their friends and their family, right? That's what's important. And money is easy to make. Once you've got your mindset and your physical body is, you can do it without it, but it's a lot simpler if you got the right mindset and you've got a healthy body. You don't have to worry about either one of those two. Building a business with the right systems is, as you well know, it's not hard. It's really quite simple.
Yes.
So that's what I do. I help people, TMV, take more vacations.
Very nice.
All right. So
Now, okay, cool. So here's the thing. Do you need to repeat that all the time, or you have that in a digital asset that is perhaps accessible at all time to the end user?
that is a great question. I do not believe I have that digitalized. I may have done it on a podcast, but I've done 450 plus micro victory podcasts, so it's hidden somewhere in the.
Okay, so that's the first thing. Again, coming back to what a brand is. A brand is what who you are when you're not in the room. So if you need to be in that room for that speech to be delivered, which actually I think is a great speech and is very close to the straight line system from the closing, obviously the infamous Tony Belford, which is a question based basically framework to get them to say yes multiple times and gain their trust. That part works. That being said, again, we want to make that scalable, and therefore that should live outside of space and time, therefore not requires time for you to do that every single time with everybody. So that would be the first thing. Encompass that within a brand that can live outside and without you, which seems to not be the case because you don't have visualized yet. That would be the first thing. Second thing is your brand also, and this is very important, we call that positioning. Your brand is as powerful as who you're talking with. So I want all the people to understand this. This is a masterclass now. It doesn't matter how good your service or product is. If you're talking to the wrong person, there will never be anything that happens from that. So even if you close the deal, it won't be helpful because there was not a fit from day one. So I want you to, again, coming back about what a brand is. A brand needs and must exist outside of you. That's one. Two, I want you to understand that your brand will only be cult-like, will only be basically adored and devoured by the people in which are the target audience. If you made that clear, if you have a clear target audience, you understand who you're talking with, not 10,000 people, one person, the avatar you're talking with, coming back to that avatar, coming back to, it might be yourself, by the way, in your case. It seemed like it is your case. It's people that was resembling you before hiring you. So that's phenomenal. That makes it easy on your part, which is great. But really, those are my two things. The third things is what I love to do from a branding perspective is exactly what you have right now. You have colorful glasses, you have basically the flowers around your neck. All of this makes you distinguishable. If I don't see you for 4 months, I'll still remember that, hey, at some point, maybe I don't even remember your name. But if I see you again, all right, I did a podcast with that guy for sure. That is great. That is novel. That is unique. That is meaningful marketing. So that is phenomenal. Think of two things when you're building a brand. One, what makes you unique and why that is important for the people that wants to hire you. Two, and this is also very important. That's also Jeff Bezos actually worked with. That's the fourth one from Jeff today. You guys are blessed. Jeff is one of my favorite entrepreneurs of all time by far. He said, instead, we live in a world that is constantly changing. So we're very prone to say what will change in 6 months, in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years. Jeff asked the exact opposite question. He said, well, what won't change 10 years from now? And he said, well, at Amazon, I never seen anyone, and I don't think I will ever see anyone that tells me, hey, Jeff, I want my package delivered slower than currently. I want my goods to cost more than they cost currently. Nobody says this. Those are what I call hard truths. Those are not subjective truths. Those are objective truths. So find those objective truths, things in which don't change with time. Make sure it's incorporating into your branding. So that way you're not only much more flexible, whatever happens from a societal perspective, you're still relevant because you're branded basically around objective truths, not current, subjective, trendy ones. So those will be my comments.
Infinite bankers and whole life marketers, get the 200 plug and play posts ready for your brand. You'll get an instant access to the Post Vault, a 7-day school trial, our most shared training videos, and the 5 stages of marketing bonus that makes your content convert. Want to brand them? Use our Fiverr guide. We'll send you the link. Click the link below or use the QR code. Remember, get it now while supplies last. It's as smart as somebody thinks they are, which I think I'm pretty smart. I do a study on I'm like not as an electrician in my one little area. I think I'm pretty brilliant. You hit on things that I had forgotten, and some of the things I didn't know, of course. And it's always good to be repetition is the mother of all learning. And
Yes.
when you someday you'll have kids with your wife, and you'll tell your kids to look left, right, and left, and they'll ignore you, and then they'll ignore mom. And then when they go to school, they'll come back one day and they'll go, "Hey, Daddy, you should look left, right, left before you cry. I've been telling you, no, you never said that." But when they're ready, they'll hear it, right? And so I was definitely ready for some of that stuff, and I'm gonna have to. There'll be some micro victories with just this little clip right here, 2 to 3 minute, maybe 5 minute at the most. But that's coming. But that was powerful. That was really powerful. Let's just break for that just a little bit. What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Serving people. I always come back to that. Serving people, serving my loved ones, serving my clients, serving the people in which we are not clients yet, but could and should be, and therefore acquiring them through our systems. Serving people.
That's what got me out of bed this morning. I know I got to have a podcast with you. I was super excited. I was like, today's that, No,
Today's the
really,
day.
seriously. No, here's the thing. 7th degree black belt. I don't have to be nice to you. I don't care I don't have to be, right? Majority of the population out there, I can take without thinking about it, including the 2-year-olds that think they're tough. So, but I'm nice because I want to be, and I'm happy. And I mean, there's people that kick my butt all day long, Hicks and Gracie, and all kinds of other people out there. But it gives me the confidence to know that it's a nice feeling to know that. Well, as an athlete, you understand that on the same level that we've done things that other people can't do. And
Sure.
who was it that said? I used to have it up there somewhere, but I'll do things today. I'll do what others don't, so I'll have what others won't. I think it was somebody Rice. I can't remember.
Oh, it is a good one.
Yeah, and so my thing is serving. As a matter of fact, when we were talking the other day, we had a short thing. I was like, you asked me what you could do for me, and I'm like deer in a headlight. I'm like, I don't know. I always serve. I never get served.
I never considered that. I always ask the question to the other person. That's
So
why I asked, though. That's why I
yeah,
asked.
it made me think. Damn it. So on the Clifton Strength Finder, number 2 is learner. So which is a very dangerous thing because that's where most people fail. It's like, I don't need to learn your marketing strategies. I would need to hire you. I'm telling the
Right.
audience right now, don't listen to what he says and be enthralled and excited, but don't think that you need to buy his book and do this. No, it's better to just let the person that, I mean, I had a client that he was talking about hiring. He was having a problem hiring, and I started talking to him about hiring, and he went, next thing I know, he shows me this book he's going to read. No, dude, I can disseminate that book in like 3 minutes and give you the whole outline in like 15, right? You don't need to sit there. This is not your area of strength. And he had really good strengths in some other areas, right? It's like, no,
Interesting.
yeah. So yeah, people, and so, but when you do read books, this is what I say about reading books. You pick up one book that's going to help you. One book. You read it, straight through. And then you can do it differently, but you should read it straight through. Then you should study it, and then you should apply it. And when you can apply it and tell somebody everything about that book, then go to the next book. Not 52 books a year, not one every other week, whatever. And I'll tell you a secret. I got a lot of books back there, but I have little books that aren't back there because I listen to them on Audible now. If I like,
Yeah.
they're back there because then I can do the research and I can look back. I don't have to try to remember. But if I don't like them, then I just don't spend the money on it. And
Got
I
it.
other bookcases and stuff. But anyway, I kind of went off on my tangent there. But yeah, that's serving people. It's I was talking with another consultant, been in the business longer than me, and Sigma Phi, I think is a black belt in that. They have a
Oh, interesting.
system. And he said, I said, are you religious? And he goes, no. Or I said, are you a Christian? I can't remember which one it was, but he said, no. He says, but I do believe in God. I'm like, well, how can you not be? He goes, well, here's what people think. And I'm going to butcher it. He goes, when you talk about God, people think, that we have to serve him. It's not the truth. God serves us. Think about it. God helps us become better. And through that, we want to serve him, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So and then I'm going to break it down a little bit more. This is my part of what he said. I said, so when God says he made man in his image, his image is in serving. So you served me by helping me with that,
Yes.
right? Okay. So, but that's in God's image. So it was really
Yes.
a revelation. I was like, really like, whoa, that is deep. He actually had to say it twice. I said, look, I say this every once in a while. I'm slow, but I'm not stupid. Okay, but I totally didn't get what you just said. So could you say it again, maybe in a different way? And he did, and then I got it right. But yeah, that's serving is the highest level of hierarchy of what we need to be doing. That makes us happy. It
I
doesn't make
agree.
unless you're like got something mentally wrong. You've done a lot of podcasts. What have you learned about these podcasts that's changed you the way that you lead and or the way that you work, as a leader or as a worker bee? What is it? What is it that the podcast has helped you change and changed you?
Listening, 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 listening. I'm a big talker. I can talk for literally weeks if you don't stop me. But listening, as my mother, again, coming back to her, you have 2 ears in one mouth. And that is very right. That is exactly right. It taught me how to listen, not just ear, not just, I'm not just hearing you. I am listening to you. There's a big difference with that. Listening is actually with the goal of understanding. I can just hear you just to perhaps as a way to distract myself, but really listening, understanding, and always coming back to what this an amazing friend of mine told me. He said, Sam, if you want better answer, ask better question. And that's what it changed in my leadership.
And how do we find better questions? That's a great thing. But how do we find the better questions? Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what question to ask, and so how do we find those better questions? This is a good philosophical discussion here. I love this. This is really good.
It is. How to find a better question? I would say humility. I would say you need to be humble to find a better question. Sometimes your ego wants to take over. You want to ask the question you want perhaps to ask instead of the one that you know that you need to ask. That's the first thing. To me, arrogance is the enemy of learning and therefore the enemy of growth. I said that actually on stage, coming back to that charity event. I said exactly that. There was a panel, and they were actually not in agreement with me. It's fine. I was once before, and I'll take them any day of the week. The it was interesting because to me, when I try to find a better question, one, you need to keep upon educating yourself, be a lifelong learner, read read books that are in your profession, outside of it. Try to understand the world for what it is, and not only what you think perhaps it is from an emotional state of mind. So I would say the one that asks the better questions are typically very curious. They're typically, that's something that I'm working on also. They're typically very direct. I have a very flowery way of discussing, which is fine. It's quite poetic. But sometimes the best way to do so is just to ask it basically as a straight shooter. So I would say to ask better question, you need to be open-minded. You need to be curious. You need to be flexible in the way you deliver those questions. I think that's something that I'm learning more and more is how important tone and pauses are. It's one way to talk like this and blah, 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 blah. It's another way to, Stephen, this is going to be very important. Are you listening to me? And therefore pausing, toning your perhaps toning your voice down a little bit so the audience lean in. So I would say all of these characteristics are how to ask better questions from a philosophical perspective, as in what is the question, but also how you ask such question. That would be my little outline.
Oh, where is it? Now you got me going. I think it's over here. You said arrogance.
Oh, Ryan Holiday. I love that
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. Ego is the enemy. This taught me a lot. It was very helpful. Uh,
Very stoic. Very
very.
interesting book, by the way.
So yeah, it was a great book. There was something I wanted to say, but I'm drawing a blank at it. But yeah, ego is the enemy. But you've got to have ego, but
Yes.
but you've got to be humble about the ego. We've had this talk before about the false humility. If somebody says you're good looking, and you go, like, no, I'm not good looking.
the
We talked about that,
the
right?
well, first of all, looks are subjective, so be careful.
Using
But
my
the
word.
but from that and I appreciate it, by the way, thank you. But I suppose you say ego is necessary. I would challenge you on that. I don't think ego is necessary. No, I think love for yourself, self love is necessary. Ego, I'm very much of a Marcus Aurelius stan. I quote him probably more than anybody else in the world. as meditation is my favorite book of all time outside of the Bible. And he talks about the concept of ego death. He talks about the concept in which, again, ego is not necessary. And I actually agree with him. I suppose we sometimes mistakes and misinterpret ego for self-love and perhaps this sort of understanding that you need to have the confidence that is necessary for you to lean in on different opportunities and endeavors without the skills or maybe the present skills or ability to do so. That is confidence. That is maybe even wit, cleverness, but that is not ego. Ego actually, I think, is not a good thing. I really don't think we need ego. I think that we have ego, and therefore we have it for a reason, because we are made in the image of God. I wouldn't try to I suppose subtract that from who we are, but I would say tame your mind and exhaust your body. That's how I live my life.
So we brought up something earlier about money.
Yeah,
It's not the root of all evil. It's just how you use it. I would ask this question to you. Would it not ego be the same thing if you looked at it a little bit differently? It's not the
sure.
ego that's the problem. It's how you use that ego, right? Because ego is what
Yes,
drives us forward. Now, you could use a different word. We can play synonyms, and you'd probably be more correct on that. But that's how I looked at it when I read it. It was like, okay, it's how do I like it took I had a big ego in the martial and so did you when you were
oh
you
yeah,
still are, right? I mean, but you're using a different word, which I can totally whatever word you want to use that means basically the same thing. I think we're
sure.
splitting hairs on that, but I will just plug his book one more time.
No, exactly. Oh, it's a
Okay,
good
so
one.
here's
Have you read the rest of the
here,
series?
huh?
Have you read the rest of the series?
No, I have not. No.
Okay.
But here, what I want you to do is I want you to change the word ego there. What is the enemy? Arrogance? Is that what you would stand by?
Oh, interesting. If just one word to describe as the enemy, ooh, yeah, it's difficult. It is
It
difficult.
is, isn't it?
The reason why it is because the reason why is I think ego is the right word is because it for me ego means edging God's out, and for me playing God, as I like to say, putting yourself perhaps as the one in which have the keys to the unknown. I think is the biggest mistake, and therefore I would ego is the enemy. I think that's the perfect title. I would say be careful with greed also. Greed is a very terrible thing, which perhaps your ego is the one that that makes greed surface. So we might want to come back to it anyways. But I think ego is the enemy is the perfect title because again, to me, there's nothing worse than somebody who doesn't understand how little he controls. That's
Yeah.
really what I think.
How little, how little we control. This brings me back to when I was a little bit older than you, and somebody was upset they couldn't get somebody to do something, and I was like, dude, can you make that cloud change direction? No. Can you stop that car over there? No. So a person with such a complex mind and thought process, how do you think? Why do you think that you're able? It's not. You can't do that, right? We have to let that go, right? We have to. And
Yes.
I always thought that I could help everybody, but I was shown that I couldn't. And one of my mentors was like, "No, dude, you can't help." I'm like, "I got a degree in psychology, or I got all this life experience you don't understand." I had to come to him one day and I say, "Yeah, you were right." And he's a smart ass. He's so funny. He goes, "Yeah, what about?" Because he did say a lot of smart things. Okay, so he goes, yeah, I know. When I told him, he goes, yeah, I know. But you had to learn it, right? As you're a younger
All
person, you
right.
have to learn it, right? And that was a good. That was one of the universal life lessons for me, because I had to learn to let that go. So, what's a universal life lesson for you on your journey? And it could be from the creator, an entrepreneur, leader, or
Sure.
that's applied to you.
Universal principle that I live by actually a man that again had an iffy life is actually I will cite two. One that I really love is Leo Tolstoy, which again had a very hard life, which is everybody thinks about changing the world, but very few think about changing themselves. That's the first one. And the second one is actually Picasso of all people, which said, and this is incredible. You'll love this. You'll love this a lot. The purpose of life is to find your gift. The meaning of it is to give it away. And
Yeah,
that, my friend, is exceptional. Incredible quotes. And I don't like Picasso, by the way. I'm a big art fan. I think Picasso is wildly overrated. That's my opinion. What a quote. What a quote. Those two, I'd say, are universal principles to live by.
that is really amazing. Yeah, we kind of talked about this earlier, but I just want to go back on it. What do you think? What do you hope, actually, not think? What do you hope people will say when you're not in the room about you?
I was reading the series. the courage to be happy and the courage to be disliked, which I heavily recommend to anyone interested in those topics and in psychology in general. I think that we are widely underestimating courage. I think we don't have a lack of intelligence these days. I don't think we have a lack of much things. We have a big lack of courage, though. Of courage for standing for what is right. You mentioned Charlie Kirk. I'll come back and support you within that. And because nobody should be actually, especially not somebody with such all things considered such noble endeavor and quests as Charlie had, and perhaps still have, by the way, from above and beyond. So I suppose that is really something that I come back to always is courage. Is how can I be the man in which my loved ones can count on, and then the world can count on, I suppose, for what is required out of me. Again, I'm nowhere saying that God requires me at all. But what I'm saying is that for times in which I am needed, I hope to be there at my fullest and to be there with all my heart and my courage. So I would say courage is certainly one of them. I would say I would love to be known as somebody in which give everybody a chance. To be honest, I always not only expect but also get. I have the mindset in which when I meet everybody new, I assume great and beautiful intentions, and sometimes obviously sometimes I'm wrong. I'm very rarely wrong, though. I'll say that. A lot of people say to be careful with it. No, 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 no. Being careful and therefore losing that faith in humanity and your fellow man is not worth doing. I promise you that. Most people, the large majority of people, are well intentioned. I can promise you this.
Yeah.
Most people are great people. Most people are well intentioned, and most people perhaps ought to be treated. All people need to be treated with respect, but a lot of people need to be treated with trust and fewer with admiration. Let's just put it this way. But I suppose, yeah, I would say courage. I would say open mindedness and tolerance. And I would say love. I hope people find, I wouldn't say I hope, I don't like this term. I suppose I wish to be a loving person to myself and to the world, and I hope it transpires in the way I talk, in the way I behave, and therefore in the way talk about me, in the way people talk about me.
Yeah, words equal thoughts equal words equals action, and actions equal results.
That's
And
right. That's right.
your present dictates what you think about in the past, which is what makes your future.
Say that again.
Your present, what you're thinking right now, basically becomes your past, which predicts your future because your brain is nothing but a predicting
Right.
machine. And it predicts if your past is everybody says, yeah, but my past, this happened to me. You change it, right? You
I
change
got
it,
it.
and then you change that changes your past, and now you can become a different person. Just the conversations that we've had, we both changed a bunch of stuff here. I'll go back to this, and this is a hot topic. Not that hot anymore. But it used to be a hot topic. Always winning in sports. Everybody gets a trophy, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not when I was a kid.
No, no.
Matter of fact, courage is not built by winning. Courage is built by losing and trying again.
100%.
And you don't learn near as much when you win because you've done something consistently over. So you're not learning anything new. You're just doing the stuff that you had learned before. So the courage is to try to do things that you're not comfortable with to become comfortable with it. And so yeah, you're totally right. And so losing is winning. Your brain, this is when it's thinking, when like okay, like when the guy was talking to me about the religious thing and I didn't get it because my brain wasn't wired that way, right? And so I had to work overtime to try and learn this new thing. And it took me a couple of times to get it. And even now, when I talk about it, I still have to think about it. It's not
Sure.
second nature, right? But I have the courage to go ahead and, hey, you know what? I might blow this story out of the water, not tell it the way he did it, but I'm going to tell it anyway, right? And the courage, and because I was in soccer too, we were on the very first soccer team in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the first season. There were like nine teams, and it was K through 5 was on a team. There's that few people, and they brought coaches from Europe over to teach us how to play soccer. It was that new,
Wow.
the courage to do any sport is a foundation that you can think about. This is a foundation that you can generalize to anything.
Absolutely. 100%.
So your clients. Let's talk about your clients. When someone says Core Centrica changed my business, my life, whatever, what stories do you hope they're telling? Or you can tell a story of theirs too.
Sure. Well, I hope to have many stories on the client side, but I suppose what I hope and what they're typically telling us is I should have looked at marketing this way for all my life. And that's really the greatest compliment. I'm sure you get that too with how you're structuring basically their life is this aha moment of, hey, not only this is possible, but this actually is very, very, very effective. So on the client side, really, meaningful marketing is so different and unique from basically how people typically markets. That it typically takes them just the consultancy, not even them being onboarded yet, just the acquisition sequence that we have to turn a prospect into clients. They're typically one of two things. One, it's too different and out there for them, and they have some type of reluctancy. That's great. That's not our clients. Or they love it so much, basically double down on it, and they just say, "Oh, perfect. Whatever it is, I'll get into it." So I would say that's the main thing. I wish and I hope and I see, and I'm very glad of them saying, "Man, Sam, I wish I would have seen marketing this way for all my life." So that's really what I hope and what we are seeing right now. And I suppose a client story to illustrate that was actually we work with typically mid-sized companies, but we have also a bunch of SMEs these days for smart contracts. And it was a lady out of Colorado, which I actually met recently in person, which was lovely. And she is a phenomenal sales coach, actually. And we were doing the marketing side of her. So she was needing basically more leads to basically close. And afterwards, she teach these people on how to close themselves. Fantastic lady. And she came back to me in person, and we sat down basically to eat a very large cappuccino. By the way, I don't know what they do in Colorado. Cappuccino was like this big. Anyways, was not very European like, but that's fine. And it was great though. It was great cappuccino. And we sat down and we talked about this at Great Clients. And she said, "Well, Sam, look, what I love about what you guys is that not only you're the expert in what you're doing, but the way our process work is we always try to be as unbiased as possible. So because we're a full service agency, we don't tell you, oh well, because we sell SEO and paid ads, you should do SEO and paid ads. No, no, no. What we're doing is that we're looking at your business face value. We have a discovery process, which is a paid consultancy. We analyze everything in the four buckets of marketing as we understand them. Come back with a very extensive market research to understand what the market is actually showing us right now, what actually is, not what I think, not what we think, what the market actually show basically by now is most likely to work. Once we have that, we basically use it, we use our neuroscientific engine to make it novel and unique and come back with a plan of action. So we're very global minded. We're also very, I suppose, data driven and I suppose fact driven before we become, again, experts in the field that we're doing every single day of. So that added contemplation, I think, is what makes us so effective and also what makes us so beloved.
You know, you said, I'll say it a little bit shorter, but you said exactly how I work. I had somebody
Oh,
once
wow.
tell me, you can't help me with my business because you don't know my business. And I said, like I wasn't this person, but I'll just say it was electrician, right? Because I have already said to everybody, you don't want me doing. I barely know what electric tape is. So you can't help me with business because you don't know about my business. No, but I know the right questions to ask. You
Sure.
should be the expert on your business. And so, and the systems are the systems. That's really good. You and I, we're a little bit crazy.
Oh, yeah.
We're not normal. Normal people, they make normal wages. They have a normal life. We're crazy. We're the outliers, right? So, having on that thought, maybe one idea that you believe others might find crazy that you're like, yeah, but.
Oh, all right. So coming to the future now, I think in less than 20 years, with the event of AI superintelligence and robotics, we're gonna be coming back to our natural state, which is a state of creations. We're gonna be able to make sure that the labor force is less bound to doing, which I think right now is much more is consuming perhaps our soul to a degree that we have very little realization of. And I believe that not only should be hopeful for the event of technology, but I believe that you should study it. I believe that you should perhaps try to really understand that with all evolution that we had, take the industrial revolution, now obviously the information revolution that we are in the 2000s, more people are better because of it. I know it seems scary. I know it's you have all these doubts because those are changes and very few people like changes. I understand that. I understand you and I wish you well. But I want you to understand that what we're currently as describing and experiencing is probably, and in my opinion, not only the most quintessential, but the best way for the labor force that could have never happened to us for two main reasons. The first reason is as we have a society now that is more and more prone on the individuality, in the West, we don't make enough babies. I'm gonna say it straight to you. We don't make enough babies. We just had the stats basically from the Quebec birth rate. It's 1.4 for family. Just to break even. Obviously, we need at least two. They say
Yeah.
2.1, but let's just stick to the two because it's easier to do maths. We're at 1.4. So there's two things. One, from a demographic perspective, we have an inverse pyramid, meaning that we have this way, excuse me, this is a pyramid, this is an inverse pyramid. So we have way too many people that are basically getting older in age, exiting the workforce comparing to the people in which are actually entering the workforce. That causes two problems. The first problem is that there's a bunch of jobs in which we're not able to fulfill, and therefore we need to rely on immigration. Nothing wrong with immigrations, but what we're seeing is that in order for us to retain the social tissue and use our resources in a trustworthy manner for our citizens and people that are actually people that lives and are shareholders to your country, because you pay taxes, I pay taxes, I'm a shareholder in my country. I want you to understand that that is my opinion. In less than 20 years from now, we'll come back to our natural state of living, like the Romans, like the ancient Greeks, which is thinking and creating. You won't be seen as a doing machine anymore. You'll be able to come back to what you were made to become, which is creative madness, creative wonderfulness. And I believe such thing is the greatest thing that maybe ever occurred actually since we're Homo sapiens sapiens.
You've helped me because I've been thinking sort of on the same level, but I really didn't have as much information as you do. It's just more of a gut feeling, I guess.
Sure.
When cars came about, they thought it was the end of the world because the horse buggy carriages were all put out of business. And so the same thing is happening here. And what I said is that, and I don't have a timeline on it, but there'll be a point in time when we as humans will not want to interact with ChatGPT and all of the others and robots, and the robots are, will want the human interaction. We need that energy, the energy. Even though we
Yes.
are thousands of miles apart, we have a type of energy, and you can't get that. Even if you were a robot or an AI, you can't get that. And especially when you're in person, that energy that bounces off, that you get that feeling in a microsecond. You know whether you like somebody or not. It's a quote unquote gut feeling. It's not really, but we'll just call it that. We'll just use that term. But
Sure.
it's and I feel I always have has been saying that it will drive people closer together. It may bring us apart a little bit right now, but
Yes.
what expands contracts, right? What goes high is go low. So so what you said there. That's how I've been feeling. I said now I'm going to go and listen to this again and get more information so that I can defend my argument better
Yeah. Yeah. You
or my
should. You
opinion,
should
whatever you want to call it.
use mine. Use mine opinion. That's totally fine.
Last two questions. This has been amazing. I really do appreciate you being on here. And every question has been hopefully something thought provoking, and or that you appreciated sharing. How do you celebrate a win?
I celebrate a win by buying a book, actually. So I'm not a champagne guy. I don't drink. I'm not a party guy. I don't have any friends. So I read. Perhaps that's what I do. So I purchase every single time there's a new high ticket client. I purchase a book. So you can see probably you don't see my library now, but it's big. And so so I love books, and that's how I celebrate books. That's how I celebrate wins. Is I take this mindset. Somebody invested in us, and therefore I use some of that investment to invest in me. By me investing in myself, I can therefore better serve who invested in us, and therefore everybody basically grows through it. That's how I see life. That's how I hope to continue to see life. And therefore, books are how I celebrate wins. Accumulating knowledge, I suppose, all things considered, is how I celebrate wins.
Okay, I want to push back a little bit because this was something that was pushed back on me not too long ago, actually, probably less than a month ago. I said the same thing you said. All my life I've been a loner. I've done everything on my own. I've built my own business. And I just don't have friends that many at all, if any. And Curtis Banks, who's the financial guru, he was worked for Boeing for 27 years. He was in charge. He's one of the main managers that were in charge of like 200 to 500 people and big, huge projects. Super smart guy. Had like a 38% return on investments. I mean, he's smart. He challenged me on that. We were doing lunch and he said, "No, Stephen, you do have friends." I'm like, and he goes, "No. Whether you use them or not, think about it. People that you know, we're friends. You could call me. If you texted me and said, Stephen, I need to talk to you, and I wasn't in a meeting, I'd pick up right away. What is a
Yeah.
friend? So we have to re-look at, and I had
Mm,
to look at what friends are, right? And I realized that I have lots of friends. I just don't use them. and I don't develop that relationship for whatever reason, right? And so I had to change that present is changing my past, which is changing my future. We don't have people over at the house. Why? I'm fun. I mean, if you ever came over to the house, man, and we were at a party, man, I'm like not cracking jokes all the time, but we have intelligent conversations, and I'm witty, and and it's all, and my wife's, everybody, thing about my wife, everybody loves Vicky. Everybody loves Vicky. Now with me, you either love me or hate me. I'm just that kind of polarizing guy, which is fine. Yeah, which is fine, right? So you do have friends, and if you don't think you have friends, you have at least one, because I'm saying I'm your friend. So
I think that's beautiful, and I agree with you. I agree with you. Thinking about it this way, I do have many friends, and it took me some time actually to redefine love. I used to think love was super complicated. I no longer see this. So maybe I will do the same thing with friends now that you said that.
I appreciate that. I hope you do, because my Tai Chi instructor was from off of Bowen Island in Vancouver.
Yes.
And you'd be surprised at how not far away you are from knowing everybody. I think as they said, 7 people away from knowing everybody in the world.
Yes.
You know me. I know Mike Dillard, who is the owner of Century Martial Arts, largest martial arts company in the world, and he knows Chuck Norris. So
There we go.
And how many people Chuck Norris? So see how it all of a sudden starts to go crazy. How many people does Chuck Norris know? He'll deny.
Oh yeah.
And I've got a picture with him somewhere. My kids find it every once in a while, and but he doesn't remember me. I mean, I was competing. I was like a nobody, But
You got it.
So you have friends. And you're friendly. That's why you have friends.
Thank you.
So that's huge. And then the last question: if you like this podcast and being on it and everything, who do you think else would like to be on there? If you just name the names, and then we'll talk later about why you think they're a fit and everything, or you can tell them right now. Who do you think else would be a good fit for the Busy Beaver podcast?
I think Mitchell Levi, actually, Credibility Nation, if that rings a bell, would be an awesome guest for this. I just reconnected with him. He's doing some very interesting work now. I think he would be a perfect fit for this.
Okay. Any others?
No, I think Mitchell will be a great one.
He's the man. We'll talk afterward. You can give me his contact information, or what I normally do. You do it your way. But what I normally do is I send a text and say, hey, this is Sam. He's amazing. You need to talk with him, blah, blah, blah. And then we take it from there. Or if you want to send an email or whatever, you want to fly him down here to me or fly me up there to him.
That's right. I'm typically, I use LinkedIn. So I'll do a LinkedIn introduction for you guys.
There you go. See, we're different, right? And yet we're still friends. Isn't that amazing?
It is so beautiful. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive.
All right. Well, this is how I end all my shows. Good luck, of course. Laboring under correct knowledge. I'm Stephen Beaver, your TMV visionary strategist. TMV, baby, take more vacations. That's how we celebrate your success and judge it. Thank you so much, Sam, for being here. You've been awesome.
Thank you, my friend. It was a pleasure. And I wish you an incredible weekend. I'm going to be in Toronto actually all week next week for business. And I'm very excited for it. I hope you have exciting plans. Continue to be awesome. And God bless yourself, your wife, all your children, and your loved ones, my friend.
Appreciate you also. Same thing for you and your futures. All right. Thank you so much. Bank on yourself, agents. Download 200 unbranded posts and turn them into your own voice. Also includes a 7-day school pass. The posting is a waste of time unless lessons you to learn, and the 5 stages of marketing cheat sheet that show you just how to move cold leads to book calls. Branding, we've got a Fiverr referral guy that if you want to brand everything. Click the link below, use the QR code, and remember, no shipping or handling charges. Get them today, now, free. If you're looking for a nonprofit organization to give to or be part of, Turning Point USA is the one. Its mission is to identify, educate, train, and organize students to promote the principles of freedom, free market, and limited government. Turning Point USA believes that every young person can be enlightened to true free market values. Go to Turning Point USA, join, and start today.